Hey, what's going on, fam? Back with another episode of the Left, Right, Left podcast. We're here. We have another first. I got my battle group assembled, my first leadership panel. And today we are going to talk about the most important topic of mental health and suicide awareness, something that is near and dear to each one of our hearts. Before we get going and we unpack this, I'd like everybody to introduce themselves. So we're going to start out with my man, Hash. Go ahead, brother.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Wesley Hashimoto. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I enlisted in 1999. As a young private, I was always told to have goals. So I set some goals. I wanted to jump out of airplanes. I wanted to go to combat. And I wanted to be a legendary Marine Corps drill instructor. After what seemed like a blink of an eye, 8 years later, I was able to accomplish all my goals. And it was my time to hang up the uniform. In 2008, I got out. I had a plan. As many Americans did, we struggled with the economy. I started, having some difficulty with the transition, and I also lost a very close brother of mine, Julian Ellis. He took his own life, and that really messed me up. I started turning to the bottle to cope, and I was borderline alcoholic. I would get off of work at 1:30. By 2:00, I was drunk. I had another friend of mine tell me, "You're going to stop drinking when it's not fun anymore." I recall drinking, and then I was drinking by myself, and then drinking by myself in a dark room, and then drinking by myself in a dark room, cleaning my gun. And I knew where that was leading. So I ended up just stop drinking. I fast forward 13, 14 years later, and I would still keep in contact with my Marine brothers, but I dreaded getting those texts or those phone calls, so-and-so's gone. So-and-so killed himself. And it was completely heartbreaking. This last 2.5 years really took a toll on me because I lost 3 very close brothers. In January of last year, I lost a former drill instructor, Jamie Nicholson, and that completely just broke my heart. We went down to San Diego for his funeral, and one of the Marines said, "Hey, I'll see you at the next one." And that really messed me up. And I told the guys, "We're not doing this anymore. I want to see you. I want to celebrate life. I want to really counter this issue." Just recently, I lost another Marine brother, another drill instructor, Brian Lampy. That, again, broke my heart. That's what led me and Mark to connect. And here we are along this panel. As a Marine Corps drill instructor and as a Marine, we do a few things. We make Marines, we win battles. Right now, our biggest battle that we face as civilians, as veterans, is our battle against mental health. And that's a battle that we're unfortunately losing. So collectively, we're all taking charge, and we're trying to make a difference.
Absolutely, brother. Hey, I appreciate you sharing. Again, we're gonna get really deep into this topic, and it was my pleasure to go to drill instructor school with you as well, man. You're a great dude.
What's that? You're my brother.
That's right. That's right. All right. Next up, we're gonna go with the youngest member of the panel, the handsomest muscle guy in the top right corner. Go ahead.
How's it going, guys? My name's Ryan Mullins. I'm a Marine Corps veteran as well. I actually shared a little bit of time with Mark in 2nd Combat Engineer Battalion. I served from 2009 to 2013, so I was a short timer. But the reason I'm here, and I feel fortunate, to look across this panel and be included with this group, it feels amazing. But the reason that I kind of had to reach out with Mark is because I thought after I got out that things would get easier, that grass would be greener on the other side. And I served 2 deployments in Afghanistan like most other people, and looked for IEDs outside the wire, thought I left all that stress behind me. And in 2015, 2 of my closest friends from the same platoon committed suicide a month apart. One of them being the guy that introduced me to my wife, the other one being my first roommate in engineer school, my first roommate in the fleet. Then he was my gunner for my 2nd deployment. So guys that I spent pretty much my entire enlistment with. And getting that phone call, kind of like Wes said a while ago, it was so unexpected. And the way it hit me, nothing's ever affected me up until that point. And to this point now, nothing's ever affected me like that. And for the longest time, it was kind of asking myself that why. Like I couldn't believe it. And then 3 years went by, 2018, and I was faced with the same type of issues. I was waking up in the morning and didn't really care if I woke up. I had no regard for myself for that most of that year. I did a really good job of masking it, but inside, it was rough every day. And climbing out of that hole wasn't easy. And I still, the last few years, it's been a tough battle. Kind of like Wes said a while ago, I've dealt with a lot of the same things. But for me, it was really taking a look in the mirror and being like, okay, am I going to just talk about this or am I going to be about this? And for me, that was making a complete career change last year. I went from being a journeyman lineman the last 10 years after the Marine Corps to I'm now a health coach partner at the VA in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And my mission now is to help those that have helped me my whole life. So I'm here now, and I'm, like I said, pleasure to be here.
Hey, thanks for sharing, Ryan. It was my honor to serve alongside you at 2nd CEB, brother. Next up, I got my man. We're just going to call him Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
Sorry about that. Greetings, everyone. I'm over here choking on my own spit. My name is Luis Fonseca. I was a United States Navy Hospital corpsman for 22 years. Mark and I first met at 2nd Tracks, which was my first duty station back in 2000. And then subsequently, we went into Iraq together. Different platoons, same area of operations, though, in 2003. I'm most known for being involved in the Battle of Al-Naziriyah, which infamously became known as Ambush Alley later on after the years. And in that battle, we were engaged in. We ended up losing 18 men on one day, which was a heavy hit, and the biggest hit the Marine Corps had seen since Vietnam and Way City, especially with mechanized units. We went in with 12 AEVs and only came out with 4 operational. So we definitely took a big hit that day, not just personnel-wise and mechanized-wise. But anywho, on that day, due to my actions, I was awarded the Navy Cross, and I subsequently spent the next, I want to say, 17 years after that as a drunk in the Navy and wasted my life away in the bottle instead of just having, like, as we say now, the cojones, right, to speak up about my mental health. And unfortunately, just keeping all that bottled inside for 17 years and dealing with it in unhealthy coping mechanisms ended up with me seeing the end of the barrel of my Glock 21 and attempting to take my life on July 8th of 2018. Unfortunately, I wasn't the first one out of my group of friends or extended group of friends that have either attempted it or contemplated that. But one thing I will say is I was definitely that person that said that would never be me. I'm too tough for it, or I'm too this, or I'm too whatever, right? And never thought it'd be me, even though the thoughts had crept up, throughout the years. I just always attested, like, no, that's just not going to be me. And then there I was. I was very fortunate to have survived my attempt. And after that, I just started speaking up about my mental health and my struggles with alcoholism, addiction, and PTSD, and just owning up the fact that that is who I am. It's not who I am, but it's a part of me. It doesn't make all of me, right? And so I decided after 17 years of lying to everyone to speak up honestly about my struggles. And 5 years later, I'm sober, still pressing forward. I'm very excited to be part of this panel. I never, as a young, seaman apprentice or hospital apprentice that Mark probably remembers, you'd be like, oh man, where's this guy going? And never thought I'd be here, but definitely very fortunate to be here. And thank you so much for having me along, Mark. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my honor to fight alongside you, Doc, and Al-Naziriyah, a hellacious day. And a lot of good things came out of that one. It's that solid brotherhood, and that camaraderie that you and I still share today. It's my honor to call you a friend. And last but not least, I got the badass female of the group. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Lindsay Hill. I'm a tech sergeant in the Air Force Reserve. I first got down and dirty with suicide awareness when I decided to join the reserve while I was in school. A lot of my friends had served, and so I was inspired by them to kind of try the enlisted side out before I went on to be an officer after graduation, which hasn't happened yet, but maybe someday. But while I was in boot camp, I found out that a childhood friend that I was very close with and was an Army National Guardsman. He took his own life. I found out on graduation day. And so really happy and sad day at the same time. And so when I got out of tech school, I was really struggling with it. And I took off back home for a little bit to decompress, ended up on a hike. And it felt really good to just kind of hammer down in the Adirondacks and just kind of just get my energy out. And I cried and I hiked my ass off and I came out of it and I had probably the best sleep of my life. So, I started just doing, I did 22 hikes for veteran suicide awareness. And I felt good. And that healing power that I had given myself in that time of grief, it worked. And so I was inspired after losing another coworker in my reserve unit to finally get out, because it was just enough was enough. And I was just tired of seeing it happen. So I started VetRec, my nonprofit organization, to help encourage veterans to get outside and experience that healing power of nature and physical activity to try to kind of help fix this problem, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Lindsay. Thank you for your continued service and carrying the colors, for us that are sitting on the sidelines now. Truly appreciate your contribution to our freedom. It's great. All right, so let's go. Let's get right after it. Okay, in order to fix a problem, we have to recognize our problem. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I firmly believe, like all of you, that we do have a big problem going on right now, particularly with the suicide rate. So I pulled the research a little bit on it, and back, as early as World War I, World War II, the rate was 3.5 times less than what it is today, right? I mean, think about that. They went through, the most tenacious battles in our nation's history and came back here and, and built the foundation, to kind of set conditions for us today, right? And now, fast forward, time now, the rate is through the roof to the point where it's impacted each one of you so much, and myself. So we kind of need to figure out the why. So, Doc, I'm going to go to you first and just kind of talk a little bit about the theory on why that is.
As we look back and maybe try to unravel this, is definitely back in World War I and World War II, there was one factor that wasn't around: social media. And I feel that maybe sometimes in today's era, it's easy to get attached to that social media page that maybe you might, I feel this way, I feel that way, but you isolate yourself. You're thinking you're getting some good therapy. You're thinking you're making a connection. You think, but you're really not. Where I think back in World War I, World War II, you didn't have this technology. So it's basically one of two options. You either talk to your family about it, right? Or you don't talk to your family about it, and you just kind of that grumpy asshole that, that's grandpa, he fought in World War I, he's just grumpy that way. And I think maybe in today's day and age, that could have some of the effect is that we sit there and just get so hyper-focused on social media and what we think the whole world entails. And we forget that there's that human factor where we need to communicate to each other.
It's a lot of things with social media. It's a lot of pressure, right? Clicks, likes, and there's this need, to fit in and all those good things. And I tell you, man, when that doesn't happen for you and it doesn't unfold the way you want it to, that can really, really screw up your confidence. And then confidence leads to mental health. Hash, had your hand up. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, furthermore, just to add to that point, right, combat in World War I, World War II was the same things that we saw in 2003, the Battle of Nasiriyah, the initial invasion, 2004, Ramadi, Fallujah. It was the same thing. The difference is that we do rely a lot on technology, right? Technology is an amazing thing. But if we have this dependency on technology, we really start to deteriorate. It's called self-esteem for a reason. But if folks really rely on those likes for those dopamine hits, again, I think that's where we're really losing. Again, technology is amazing, right? We can do so many things now versus, 60, 70 years ago, and really be able to seek out the enemy, to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. However, if we have that dependency on technology where it's a hindrance to the mission, I think that's a huge detriment. Mm-hmm. Lindsay, what you got? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
No, it's okay, brother. Go, Lindsay, good. You're chomping at the bit, my friend. Go ahead.
So just a couple of little interesting things. A quick thing I would say, because we've talked before on statistics, right? And so just a quick tidbit to put in everyone's brain for a moment. How many people are we losing now to actual war compared to before, where we've lost people in the war that maybe would have come back alive, and that could have been something that suicide could have really plagued them too, right? So we have to kind of understand like statistics and what really comes forward. I'd be interested to see like that X amount per X amount, like 10 of 100,000 or whatever, that might make a little bit more sense to wrap our heads around. Other thing is, I mean, Ryan, what do Ryan and I do to handle our stress, right? We work out. Look at our obesity rates now. Look at our diet and exercise habits of people now versus back then. People back then were more fit. The physical education was more popular in schools. I mean, you see Reagan era, the physical fitness videos, they're doing pull-ups. Every person in that gym class is doing pull-ups. I've never seen anyone do a pull-up in gym class in my entire life, and I graduated in 2007. So the mind-body thing is very important. And I think as technology becomes more and more of a convenience for us, I think we get away from our core values of, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our families, taking care of each other, that it's really impacting us like fully.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
So I just want to hit back to what you all said about the likes and the dopamine hits. So, a huge difference between us and that World War I, World War II generation. Going to war then was almost just like an everyday job. It wasn't polarized. And now we have years and years of stories that have escalated. And it's like you go from a draft to guys that are volunteering because of stories they heard. And they want that same reputation. And then when you're in the military and you've deployed and you're in Afghanistan and you're on this high and you're not worried about anything back home, you're just worried about the mission and what's going on that day. And when you get R&R, you're just bullshitting with the boys. Like you're living that combat life, and you come back home and then you get in a monotonous job, and it's like you lose your sense of that almost a heroism kind of feel. It's like we go from that I felt up here to now I'm down here, versus back then it was like they just went and did a job and came home and did another job. I think it's changed. I think the military and the way the country itself views it has changed so much that it almost like fluffs us up too much.
Yeah. No, those are all very good points that you guys made, and I agree. It did. It just, I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the evolution of technology and the fact that we can advertise things and you can absorb information so much faster than you used to be able to back in the day. And we're always kind of searching and looking, and just I didn't hear a lot. I'm the old guy of the group, and just to be truthful, like, I used to go to the VFWs and the Legions and the Elks and stuff with like my grandfather, and you didn't really hear a lot of talk about military service. It was like you might hear that somebody served, but you didn't really hear a lot about the details and stuff. Now that's, if you do anything, you Google anything, you can get as much of that as you want. It almost like sets a precedence for us as service members to say, if we don't meet a certain level or certain expectation, like it's a huge letdown. Next thing you know, you're depressed and you feel like you didn't achieve, and just sends you into the spiral, man. It's like cats start scratching your brain. Next thing you know, you're lost. I did want to ask one thing, right? So here's another huge difference between the older generations and the generation now, and even the one before, right? The younger folks like us. Drugs, right? Medication. We call it medication, right? But they're drugs. It's drugs. And Doc, I'm going to spin it over to you here in a second, but I can just say this, that, I got friends today that have boxes and boxes full of pills laying out, like to the point where they got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they got like days of the week lays out with different pills that they need to take and stuff like that. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about medication, aka drugs, and how that, is perhaps impacting, our veterans. Go ahead, Doc. You're first. You're the corpsman, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And just a disclaimer for our audience members out there is, I am not a licensed medical doctor. So whatever I say is just strictly opinion. Yes, I did quote unquote practice medicine in my military career, but that was under the supervision of a licensed doctor. So this is just, all I can say is just opinion. Um, Please do not consult your healthcare providers for anything that you want to do that affects your medication, whether starting medication or getting off of medications, whatever it is. But yeah, I think when it finally opened up my eyes, and this is like Mark said, they called me doc because I was a Navy corpsman for 22 years. I heard the stories of people getting medications for this ailment, that ailment, and you see the commercials, right? Back in the day when we used to watch TV instead of stream everything, we had commercials, and you see them come up, and hey, take this pill, but it could make you maybe have diarrhea or incompetence or erectile dysfunction, whatever, right? And we all laugh and joke about it, but it stopped being funny when those medications were started given to me. And, fortunately I had maybe just a little bit more of a medical knowledge than your everyday person. So I had enough to really read these counter side effects, right? Adverse reactions that you might get. When I started reading some of these warning labels, and I was like, well, I'm taking this medication because I'm depressed. But the warning strictly states this medication could make your suicides even worse. I didn't understand why a medical professional would give me that medication knowing I was already maybe in a fragile state, and then leave it up to me to have the honor, integrity, whatever you want to call it, right? To say, hey, this medication is screwing me up even worse. And I would like to, like I said, play devil's advocate. Is how many of our civilian population, or just people that have never really looked into the medical profession, know that, right? They might just be like, I think I just have to take another day, and another day might not come. So it's just really, really something to me that I just didn't understand, especially when medications were given that state, hey, you got to take this medication for whatever is the, PTSD, depression, anxiety, whatever, but you can't take it with this medication within the same 24-hour period, 12-hour period, because they contradict each other, right? They could really, really screw you up inside, to even cause death sometimes. And when I started getting medications put that way, and I would ask my doctors, hey, so how am I supposed to take this? Help me figure this out. And they're like, that's really not our problem. We gave you the meds, figure it out. I knew there had to be a better way. And like Lindsay and Ryan all said, I'm sure all of us have been there as well, Mark and Hash, where we just kind of figure out, let me go back to what I know kind of works. And that's either exercising, feeding our mind healthy, right? Whether it's education, whatever, a hobby, a good, healthy hobby.
For me, straight up, man, like, and again, somebody might watch this, some medical professional or whatever, and tell me that I've lost my mind just because I'm not a doctor. I can only speak to my own experience. That when I was seeking counseling and getting help for combat stress, 2 years before I retired, they gave me a bunch of pills, and I did take them as was told to, right? And when I took them, I felt worse. I felt considerably worse. Not just stomach issues, just I was tired, my sleep was off, all that stuff. So I took them on, I dumped them down the toilet, and I've never taken any of that other stuff then. And my other point about that, before I pitch it over to Ryan, is that, and again, just pumping kids full of like Ritalin because they have minor behavioral issues and stuff like that, that does not sit well with me. And it's happening all over the place. It's almost like a dependency, that we're creating amongst society of like being, hooked on medication, or saying that the only way you can get better is through medication, not through means that you guys are doing today in action steps that you're taking. Go ahead, Ryan, over to you.
Okay, I don't want to harp on this too long just because we've already hit a lot of it. And I also want to kind of be like you with the medical professionals. I'm not married to my opinions. Everything I share is me being what I've experienced, and like I'm just being transparent. So I want to kind of shed another light on the medication side as someone who works the VA and someone who utilizes the VA 100% for my medical. So I've went the last decade of my life from the time I got out against medication. I didn't want to feel like a zombie. I had heard all these horror stories. And you can scroll what we talked about social media. You can scroll my social media, and I've got 1,000 workout posts on there from the last 12 years. Like if people looked at me, they'd be like, that guy's the epitome of health. They had no idea what I had going on up here because I was good at masking it. And my wife was finally like, you got to do something. You got to go to therapy or you got to get something because it was starting to affect my family. So what I did is they said, are you open to medication? And I said, I've never been open to it, but I'm at the point now. I want to know what my options are. So I met with the prescriber and I was adamant to her that, hey, I'm not taking a bunch of stuff. I don't want a high milligram. I want to start with the most minuscule amount we can start with. And she listened to me. And I think a lot of it's going there and they're too afraid. They either don't want to speak up or they think they're going to say something that's not right. But you need to speak up. You need to be like, this is exactly how I see it. You need to be transparent for yourself and be an advocate for yourself. So what I did was like, hey, I'm open to this, but I'm very unsure and I'm very weary. So I want you to work with me. And she put me on a dose that really wasn't even supposed to help. And I've been on 2 medications. I told her I was not taking more than 2. If it didn't work, then hey, I'm going to wash my hands and move away. But I'm on 2 medications now. And my roller coaster of emotions and day to day has been going for 2 months. So I'm going to say, hey, maybe I got lucky. Maybe I'm the outlier here, but I'm also taking a very low dosage of both. I didn't just say, hey, this isn't working. I really paid attention to each day, what was going on within me. And I'm like, man, this little bit of dose is making a big enough difference that I don't feel like a zombie, but I also don't want to kill myself every day. So I feel like you got to really be an advocate for yourself and just be transparent about it all. Don't be afraid of it, but don't be like, yeah, give me all the medication. So you got to find that middle ground.
Yeah, great point, Ryan. Great point. Doc, you want Doc or Lindsay?
So, Ryan makes a good point. We're all out here with our pitchforks ready to like damn the pharmacy industry, right? And while I'm typically kind of like, big pharma, we do have to appreciate the fact that medication and science and all of that became what it was because it was helpful, right? I don't think that they're sitting there trying to kill us off, making these pills and being like, how can we hurt people, right? Like there's a good intent. And I think Ryan makes a good point about advocating for yourself and not being like, don't run in there off the gate, harping on the fact that you need ADHD medication because you can't focus because maybe you're eating too much sugar and you don't have an exercise plan. Don't go into a place saying you're completely against the medication because you've heard X, Y, and Z stories. It doesn't hurt to try a small dose and figure it out, and then humble yourself if you were wrong. And if you're right, go for it. Right? Obviously, it's working for Ryan. So for anyone listening, let's not just like throw our medications out the window because a couple of people said that they're bad. But I mean, on the other hand of that. I have a friend who went in, I say friend now, but somebody that, I helped through the nonprofit that reached out, and this individual went to counseling. They said they wanted to try therapy, and boom, they were on a medication. And then they reached back out and said that they were feeling suicidal and that they had never had those feelings before the medication. And so I said, hey, call the prescriber and say, this is where I'm at right now. I made sure that their spouse was aware that they had a plan to like maintain this crisis. Obviously they let me know. So I thank them for their bravery on that. But they went and then they had an alternative. And you know what helped the individual? Therapy and going sober, quitting alcohol, right? So we never talk about that part of it. Mixing the medications, because a lot of those medications, if you want to be on anything like that, like even ADHD medication, they say that alcohol can interfere. So if you really want to get help and you want to use medications, we need to be talking about that maintenance of other drugs and alcohol and being open with our providers on like how you want to get better. You need to make some lifestyle changes. And that comes back to the whole diet, exercise. Alcohol is part of diet. So I think that, we need to keep that in mind, that if we're going to manage our medications, we need to do it correctly that no medication is meant to be bad or hurt us, but maybe other things that we're doing are hurting that chance.
Yeah, that's solid. I mean, we got, kind of a more lenient attitude, from Ryan, a middle of the road kind of attitude from Lindsay, and then myself and Doc are kind of more on the line of like, yeah, we really don't want to take this stuff, and we're a little, a little on the other side, and that's okay. So I'd like to press the gas, and Hash, I'm gonna hand the baton over to you, but I think that, from us talking over the last few weeks, and figuring out what we're going to do here today, we all agreed, big head nods back and forth, that the reason why so many of our veteran brothers, and not just veterans, but just people in general, civilians, whoever, is they have a large vacancy in their life. That's a big delta there. There's something missing that makes them go down, into that depressive mode and then ultimately take their life. Each one of us has a tremendous amount of experience and different experiences as far as vacancy. And all of us have been teetering, along that line. So Hash, over to you. Talk about that, please.
Again, Mark, as drill instructors, one of the things from that SDI speech is be completely honest in everything that you do. As military members, right, warriors aren't meant to just be able to turn it off. If you're a Marine Corps veteran, you do 3 months of boot camp. Army does 2.5 months. Air Force, Navy, they all do their indoctrination. Right? So the military and the government invests a lot of time and money to really train you to do that specific job. Oftentimes, you get to that level and you don't know how to turn it off. And I think that's where we're really missing the mark. When folks are looking at transitioning out from active duty or reserves into an effective member of the civilian side, that's where folks tend to really struggle. And I really think that if you take a step back and look at the root causes, again, we've talked about the drugs, we've talked about PTSD. PTSD doesn't always have to be resulting to combat. Right? If there's any type of traumatic experience and you're not able to openly convey your feelings, you turn to substance abuse, you turn to alcohol. When it's all said and done, you should be turning to whatever helps, not really suppress, but whatever helps you feel better. Again, Mark, Doc, I'm just like you. I'm all messed up in the head. And when I got out, they said, here, take more drugs. I didn't want to do that. I started talking to my other brothers. My sister, she works for the VA. I remember when I got out, I was trying to talk to VA shrinks, and they looked at me like I was the crazy one. As an 03, as an infantryman, we are expected to go and see unnerving sights and sounds, and you're going to see death. That's going to happen. There's no way of really turning that off. And me personally, it came down to doing some, alcohol abuse. Ultimately, I transitioned and I just started talking to other veterans. I talked to my brothers. I think for me personally, it came down to being able to convey my feelings and not using a means of, not using substance or liquor to suppress my feelings.
Yep.
We've always had that suck it up mentality where physically, hey, suck it up, Marine, you got to do it. But then mentally, that's a completely different ballgame. I think Lindsay had mentioned we really have to take a step back and look at, instead of mental health, tweaking it a little and saying mental fitness. Right? How are you mentally in the head? As you transition in from a active duty or reservist to a civilian, right? Hey, those paychecks aren't coming in. Yes, you may have been an E8, E9, and 04, 05, but guess what? It's not about your time in service. It's about where you're at. In civilians, that doesn't always really mean anything.
Yeah. Ryan, you have a really good way of articulating kind of the vacancy and the void. I'd like you to kind of talk and back up Hashimoto's comments.
So kind of like, are you saying where that disconnect is and kind of like how the experiences were?
Yeah. Because the best times of your life, you're the one who's always talking about, like that was like the premier time for you, the highest of the highs, the adrenaline rush, and just not having that as a civilian, and it really, really messes with you. Go ahead.
So there's two things with that I really want to share, but I don't want you, the listeners, and you all to think I'm over here like patting myself on the back, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm more trying to relate. But the two things is, when I was in CEB, I somehow got a reputation that preceded myself, and I was a 2-year sergeant in the Marine Corps, which, Mark, you can know that's not very common as far as it is being in a combat MOS. I was extremely successful. And in my head, it's like, hey, if I'm doing it in the Marine Corps, I can do it when I get out. And I had this chip on my shoulder almost, like, man, I was the man when I was in there, when I was doing that. I had guys looking up for me. I was leading Marines. I had a platoon. My second deployment platoon, it's been 10 years, and I still talk to them regularly. Like, our bond and morale was incredible. And like, they all still call me when they have something going on. And I'm like, what did I do to have this impact? And, and then I got out, and I'm expecting all these great things to happen for me. And kind of like Wesley said just a second ago, you get to a point where it doesn't mean shit when you get out, depending on what you do and where you go. That high that you had, that success that you had, it may or may not mean anything depending on what road you take. And that was extremely hard for me to look in the mirror and be like, I thought something was wrong with me, because I'm like, what am I doing wrong now? This worked then. Why isn't it working now? And to back that up, let's talk about kind of what Lewis said a while ago. We all have combat experience. My combat experience that I'll relate to this is, one time in Afghanistan, we're clearing outside of the green zone and singing on Fob Alcatraz. They're wanting to expand it. We're clearing on foot, swinging a 7-pound mine hound. This is my first deployment. We're 4 months in. It was July. It was 130 degrees. It was miserable. Our morale was terrible. We each had one guy providing security for us. And I look back, there's 3 of us clearing. I turned the mine hound off, and I'm clearing, and I'm just looking, using my visual, and I'm sweeping my foot across the ground. I'm like, y'all stay back. This is how I'm going to clear right now, because all I cared about was that nobody behind me got blown up. I could care less about myself at the time. It's just like, long as the guy behind me is good, F it, I'm clearing like this. I'm not swinging this stupid stick. So, when 3 of us were doing that, and that night, I still remember it vividly. We're sitting between the trucks, and it's like, we're joking about it. That, yeah, like, if I get blown up right now, I get blown up. It's like, you're okay with it. Like, you've come to terms with it. And then you get out, and it's like Wesley said, you've been ingrained. Like, in boot camp, you were ingrained. When you're training for a workup for a deployment, you're ingrained. This is just constantly, you're just being flooded with it. It's like, I'm a warrior. I'm not afraid of nothing. Like, I just want to look out for my boys. And then you get out, and it's like, how do you ever match that again? How do I ever do something here in the States where it's like, I don't care if I get blown up by an IED. I've lived my life. I'm happy. Like, I went out on my shield. And then, but now you come home, and it's like, this sucks. I'm working 9 to 5. I don't got my boys. The guy that I worked next to don't give a shit about me. Like, and it's like, you go from here to here, and finding that purpose it's paramount. And a lot of guys never find that. Some guys get out and they go 10 years. Some guys go 30 years. I meet Vietnam vets, and when I give them a whole health orientation, I say, I go to that spirit and soul one, and I'm like, what's your purpose? And they look at me in the eyes and say, I haven't done anything purposeful since the 60s. It's heartbreaking. But that's the reality of it, is we all go through these highs. And I understand that there's people killing themselves and suicide that didn't have deployments like we had. So I'm talking from my experience, but man, it's tough. It's hard to go from that to coming home.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get to Lindsay here in a second, so she can talk about the fact that, hey, there's a lot of people that commit suicide that not necessarily combat related, and let her talk through that experience. Probably the best depiction I could say, and I know it's Hollywood and everything, but in the first Rambo movie, First Blood, when Rambo just goes into all out meltdown mode, and he talks through those things just like you did, Ryan, talking about how he can't hold down a job at a car wash. That the combat stress that he was feeling, the loss that he was feeling, everybody in his team had died, and he just breaks down in the corner and just is like, crying and stuff. That's kind of what it feels like to a lesser extent, for a lot of us. He that was obviously probably the most extreme visual I've ever seen of like a combat meltdown and just a stressful meltdown. And it's a really good depiction of it. But I tell you, man, there's been days where I might not have outwardly expressed it the way that Rambo did in that Hollywood film, but I felt that way up inside my head quite a few times. Hey, Lindsay, not everybody, is combat, rah, rah, and all that good stuff. So you have lost, a lot of people to suicide that weren't, didn't have that weight of combat in their shoulders, but they had other stressors. Can you talk through that, please?
Yeah. So I don't actually know exactly what my childhood friend did when he was in. I know he was a medic, but from some research I've done recently, I guess the unit he was with was kind of like secret squirrel stuff. Like nobody really knew what his unit did. So I don't know his experiences in that, but I know, there was some other things that he had been through that growing up, like our childhood, that were pretty traumatic, that a lot of that stuff, maybe that contributed to him wanting to serve, to protect others, to have a purpose and try to get away from home. But regardless, we carry weight with us from our civilian lives, from, even just your day-to-day life in the military. I know the other individual that my friend from my unit, he was Navy active duty prior to coming to our unit to be in the reserve. And, he was a family man. He had a wife and kids, and I've got a video on my phone of him making a paper airplane and flying it across the hallway into the ramp section, like messing with his buddies in there. And they were goofing off at lunchtime. And he seemed like everything was going good, but obviously, there were things going on in his life we didn't know about. And, that could have been anything to, when you step back and you say, what could it have been? Maybe there was one of the kids was sick. Maybe there was marital problems. Maybe there was financial problems. All of those things, you have to carry those and then show up with your poker face on as a staff sergeant, as an NCO, as a leader. And you have to be there for your airmen, and you have to take on what they're dealing with. And the younger airmen, I think, I would just say lower ranking individuals in any branch are younger. They might be a little bit more forward about their feelings. But once you start putting that rank on, as a tech sergeant now myself, I know I just went to a guard unit because I'm switching teams. And my friend died yesterday morning, and I had to go in there, and they would never know. They have no idea, because I had to figure out how to pack that in and just go forward. And I've learned resiliency through my experiences to say, okay, I've got to pocket this for a second, and having that maturity, the emotional, the resiliency to say, hey, Dave wouldn't want me to sit here and cry about it. Like, he would want me to go forward. He'd kick my ass if I didn't go there. If I said that was my excuse for not showing up. And then the reality of it is, if we go into battle, if shit really hits the fan and I'm over there and I lose my guy next to me, I got to figure out how to pack that in. And I know someone mentioned embrace the suck. And I think that's where we're kind of losing a translation here, is that was meant for in military time, like when you're in uniform and like you're really in it, that you don't have to come home and embrace that suck when you're at home and you have time to talk about it. Like, let's break it down. But everyone thinks that you got to just put your poker face on, especially men, especially male military individuals. Like, you got to be a man up, embrace the suck. And that's what's causing us. Like, now you're having people that have like a little thing that happens in life, seemingly little, obviously not little to them, but because of all of that is packed in, and you just have problem after problem after problem, and then you're just done. You're over it. You can't take it anymore. And I've been there. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think about it, that I haven't had that moment in my life. But going through therapy, finding hiking, having my coping mechanisms, that's a way that we crawl out of that hole and we start digging through the shit that we've been through. But until we encourage people to believe that it's really okay to have little things going on and to talk about them, then we're never going to get rid of this problem.
No, all solid points. Hash, you had your hand up. Go ahead, brother. Quick one.
Hey, Lindsay, you just literally described what combat is. Okay? So think about it. You shot that text yesterday. Everything was good. You experienced a traumatic loss. We didn't cancel the podcast. You dealt with it, and you continue to move forward. That's exactly what we train our Marines, our airmen, our soldiers to do in combat. You're going to experience loss. And I swear, I wish we could stop and put a timeout and pause, but that's not how combat works. If you experience a loss, you put that to the side, you continue moving forward, you keep driving for mission accomplishment. Once we have that quick admin pause and it's safe, we talk about our feelings. So yes, Lindsay, I know for that you and I have texted before, and yeah, you haven't had any combat experience, but I kid you not, you literally have described what Mark did, what Ryan did, what Lewis did, what I did. Our brothers and sisters were killed in combat. It sucks. But we don't have time to really comprehend what just happened. We need to keep moving forward. Hence the Left, Right, Left, Keep Moving Forward podcast.
I tell you, man,
for your courage.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And sorry for your loss, Lindsay. Here's the thing. Before we get to best practices and we kind of start, pulling ourselves up out of the trauma, right? Is the delta is this, in my humble opinion, is like Hash was saying, you go through the trauma, but you're still with your brothers and your sisters at the time. When we lose our people in combat, we can talk to them a couple days later and everything. The issue is once you depart ranks, right? Once you leave the military and you leave that camaraderie and all that support and people who understand, right? I can't go to my neighbor who's a banker down the street who I love this dude, but he won't be able to relate to the experience that we have shared. He just won't. And that's the delta. And that's where we got to tighten up. So we got to continue to build that community and camaraderie after we leave ranks by doing things like we're doing here and setting up, little things and reunions like Wesley did a couple weeks ago with his brothers at MCRD San Diego, and the action steps that you guys are taking on the side, trying to indeed build this community. So that's what we got to get after. Make sense?
It makes perfect sense, Mark. I mean, you literally hit the nail on the head. Again, the program that Ryan is running with the VA, with that health, the wellness coach, oftentimes, I've said this multiple times, warriors are not meant to just turn it off.
Yep.
We need to do certain things in combat, but if you can't openly discuss your feelings, you're going to lose. You are going to lose all the time. I went from having a small 3 or 4 man text to literally a 20 to 25 group text message. And the easiest way for me is to let my brothers know how I'm feeling.
Right.
If people aren't able to openly discuss their feelings, you're asking for failure. You're asking for just negative and adverse reactions.
Yep, I agree. Hey, so each one of you has been, Doc, you can take yourself off mute because you're up next, Doc. I see your balloons. You're up next. So I wanted to, each one of you has been pulling yourselves up. You got the no shame. You guys are killing me. Doc, you have been the guy who I'm so thankful and grateful that your Glock stovepiped and that you're still here with us because you got a beautiful story. And you got a lot of wisdom and experience and motivation to share with people. So I'm very grateful for that. But Doc, you are at that point to now where you're doing much better in your life. So we're going to go around the horn. We're going to start with you and talk about kind of like best practices and stuff to keep yourself out of that human red volcano zone and keep yourself, over in the green where you're being productive. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, definitely. One thing to just kind of bring it back around to what Lizzie and Hash were talking about as well is, obviously in those moments of tragedy and there's a mission going on, whether that mission is boots on ground or, coming to a meeting, right? It's a mission, right? It's either going to get accomplished or it's not, right? It's only one of two options. You're either going to come and show up to the meeting or you're not. You're going to show up to work or you're not. I think in those moments when we know that we have to compartmentalize that tragedy for a moment in order to execute mission, right? So our buddy drops in combat. We got to step over that person to execute mission. We lost a friend, due to a tragic event this morning or the day prior, but hey, we still have to push forward. I feel that maybe sometimes what happens in that is we forget that during, like Cash said, during those downtimes, to open up that bottle and decompress. Just feel like, hey, you know what? That shit happened 3 months ago. I can't dwell on that right now. I got to push forward. And so that, like we all stay, Lindsay said, what we might think is a small event in someone's life, we don't realize that was just that tension point, right? That broke, that little water drop that broke that surface tension point, and it all spilled out. So I think that's one thing that we really, as people that have gone through trauma, and I just don't want to say combat, because Lindsay obviously brought it to the surface. It's not just combat related. It's post-traumatic stress. It's not post-war stress. It's not post-rape stress. It's not hazing stress. It's post-stress. For 17 years, I drank myself stupid. I did all this unhealthy stuff. So it just came down to best practices was for me flipping the switch. I've been lying. I've been doing all of these things for 17 years. I haven't worked to the point that it led to me wanting to take my own life. What do I have to lose by doing the exact opposite? And for me, that's what's worked, was opening my mouth, being honest with people around me about what's going on, not hiding in the shame of that I'm a recovering alcoholic or addict, or that, I had a suicide attempt, or that, hey, today, I don't know why, babe, but it's just a great day. I don't know why. I don't understand it, right? So for me, those best practices are just opening up to those loved ones around me, which even my friends of mine that I consider true friends are loved ones, right? To open up, be honest with them, let them know what I'm dealing with, on those very dark days, and not sugarcoat anything from anyone has been my best practice for sure. Absolutely.
Hash, over to you, brother.
When it's all said and done, again, I think the best thing we can do is just continue communicating, continue talking to each other. There's nothing wrong with really voicing your opinion, your feelings. I know for a fact with some the meds work. Like I said earlier, I didn't like how the meds make me feel. I'd much rather, hey, Mark, I'd call Mark, I'd call Lindsay, I'd call Ryan, I'd call Luis. That was my way of addressing my feelings. So, again, I think the best thing we do is continue just overly communicating the issue, really trying to root cause and spread the message with what we're trying to do. Between Lindsay's nonprofit, between Doc's nonprofit, between Ryan's working at the VA.
Oh, don't spoil it. That's our last point. Don't spoil it. That's our last talking point. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Hey, Ryan, over to you. I know you got some uniqueness about how you deal with things. Go ahead.
So the first thing I want to say is I don't speak for every veteran when I speak, but the number one thing that I've noticed is the thing we can all come together on is a sense of purpose. I feel like whenever we all serve, especially you, Mark, and you all who did more than 4 years, that was your purpose, and we get out and we searched for that for so long. And I got out and I took on an amazing career. I made a lot of money doing line work, and I was doing all these things I was supposed to do as a man. Like, if you looked on a piece of paper, like, I was following the blueprint of, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I have a good career. I'm providing for my family, but I was not waking up every day happy at all. I dreaded going into my job. I felt like I had nothing going for me. Even though it looked like I did, it didn't feel like I did. And then you put losing these people on top of that. And, as being people in the military, it's like, I got so tired of just talking about it. I was like, it's time to be about it, and I started being like, okay, I've got to pull myself out of this hole. And I actually just shared this with Mark recently. In 2018, actually it was the spring of 19, after I'd pulled myself out of my depression, I was like Lewis said a while ago, I said, okay, I'm going to start talking about it. I'm going to share it. I'm going to quit keeping it to myself. If people look at me different, that's part of it. I'm going to let people know they're not alone. So I made a Facebook post. I didn't sleep well at that time. I made it at midnight. The next day at lunch, it had 500 shares on it. I mean, I poured my heart out in this post about things I'd experienced, things I've already talked about here. I left nothing out. And the comments I had from people in the military saying, like, holy shit, man, I feel exact what you just put into words is what I've been experiencing for years. And it clicked in my head. I'm like, why have I kept this bottled up for so long? Like, why have I been so scared to talk about it? Why am I not doing more whenever it's been in me the whole time? So then I started opening up about it. And that led to, okay, what can I actually do that's going to make a difference? Because I mean, I'm all for the 22 push-ups a day, making the post and all this, but the reality is that's been going on for years now and our numbers are still just as high. So it's like, what am I going to do to make a difference? And I found out about whole health at the VA, and man, that's what my life is anyway. My life revolves around moving, around fitness, around eating healthy. I don't drink. All these things I'm supposed to do, I do, and it still wasn't enough. So whole health, what it is it's getting you off that medication or only limiting it to what you need. Okay.
Lindsay, talk a little bit about your best practices and what keeps you level, please.
Okay, am I holding on to the vet rec stuff or?
Yes, you're holding the vet rec, please.
Okay, wait, hold it.
Yeah, you hold that till the end. Yes, ma'am. Okay,
so I mean, I'm just gonna, did I say that diet and exercise are really good for mental health? So my best practices is, of course, obviously, I mentioned that going into hiking, but I know, a big thing. Now I live in the Midwest, so I'm not in those mountains anymore or have as much access. And so that was a new thing that I had to kind of work through, is coming out here, not really knowing what's going on. I lost that purpose again. And so that's where, I started the nonprofit that I'll get into. But while I was trying to kind of get that off the ground, I needed to really dig deep and figure out how to have fun in Kansas, right? Let's all, laugh about that one. So, there's not really as many tornadoes as people think. So I wasn't really chasing them around. But I got into trail running. Like, I just started running because I knew that the exercise had always been helpful. So I started running and I fell in love with it. Trail running now, more specifically, because I can kind of get in the woods and like almost hike, our 400 footers. But, and I find that, and Ryan can probably agree with me, I would say my best performance days are my best days and my worst days. So when I'm feeling really good and I'm happy and I'm in a good mood, I just, I go out and it's just great. I feel good and I'm in it. And then when I'm having a really bad day, I just lace up my shoes and I just go. I put on my angry music and I just think about everything I'm angry about, and I'm sad and frustrated, and I just run. And I just get it out. Like, I'm just, be mad at it. Remember when we were kids and, you had to hit harder on the baseball or whatever, just be mad at it. And so for me, it really is just getting out there and just throwing down on cardio. And it could be weights for anyone that's not interested and thinks cardio is super lame, but it's not. But, whatever, it's okay to be wrong. But I just definitely find that eating healthier on those days too, definitely staying away from the alcohol because it just makes you more sad. That it just taking care of myself so that at least when I wake up the next day after crying myself to sleep or whatever I end up doing, I can wake up feeling good. And at least that next day, like, I have a new chance. You get to start over tomorrow. And if you wake up, you're hungover or whatever it is, then you just keep perpetuating that cycle. So I think just, taking care of yourself and talking, letting somebody know. I mean, you guys have been incredible this past week and a half, by the way. Like, I've really just felt like I had somebody to, I could just voice it and say, hey, this shit's fucked up. And then you guys, somebody was always immediately like, you got this, like, we're here for you. So it's definitely, and like Ryan said, sharing your story is so important because you get to help somebody else out in the future.
Yeah.
You realize how many people you're helping. So talking about it gets it off your chest, but you are helping others too.
Yeah, no doubt. And each one of you is, like, we'll have this bond now, for as long as we have oxygen in our lungs, because I have a relationship with all my podcast guests. And some of you I knew personally before this anyway, but there's no doubt about it that this will not die on a vine once we hit stop record. So the one thing I'll say that'll be just maybe a little different, but similar to what you guys say. I know when I retired, and it was great, man. Like, I was elated about it. You're like, oh, cool, no more phones. No dealing with misconduct. Time with with your spouse, time with your son, and you get to do all this stuff. But then reality starts setting in, and when you've been helpful to people for so long, and you've been in the camaraderie for so long, and then you're sitting here and you go to work, you come home and you do those things. It's just a huge gap, man. It's just a void. And you got to find out that way. And that goes back to that purpose thing that Ryan talked about. You got to find your own way to figure out how you can continue to help others if you care and if you have that character trait, within you. And that's kind of something that was built to me from being in the Marine Corps a long time. And that's the reason why, why you guys are here. So here's the thing that each one of you is, right? And Ryan said it, raising awareness, 22 a day, other things that are done for suicide awareness day, suicide awareness week. All those things are wonderful and they do help. It's been proven that actually the suicide rate went down considerably during that 22 a day campaign that happened for about 9 months when we were pressing the gas on it. But then, just like Ryan said, it went right back up once we sort of, took our eye off the ball. So what's needed more than just raising awareness, which is good, is action steps. Taking action in some sort of way to help chip away at this known problem that we recognize. Each one of these is doing that a little bit differently. We're going to go around the horn. So I'm going to ask you, Doc, to come off mute, please, and talk about the action steps that you and your team are taking to put a dent in the suicide rate. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. As we wrap this up, just want to say thank you for this platform to be able to share my experiences, and then as well, now that we're coming to an end, what myself and my team have been trying to do post my career. Kind of like everyone has stated here, you have to find a purpose in life, whether that's in service, wearing the uniform or outside, doesn't matter. And definitely rang true to me once I was coming up for retirement. And I wanted to figure out what was I going to do, as we call it, grow up. Once we grow up in life, even though I still haven't figured out what I want to do, I did know that I still wanted to give back to an organization that, in hindsight, I attest that saved my life and made me the man that you all see before you today. And I owe a lot of thanks to the Navy and the Marine Corps for helping me with that. So to give back, after my suicide attempt, and I started speaking up about that to my junior personnel, I saw the impact, like Ryan said, the impact of sharing my story. So I found it originally started as Luis Fonseca, No Shame, just me talking about my experiences being a Navy Cross recipient, right? What some people might, quote unquote, label a war heroes, a title I'll never use on myself. So I just started speaking up about it and seeing that impact that I was leaving with the junior personnel mainly, right? Finally that they felt they had a leader or someone that understood not only what they were going through, but wasn't afraid to kick down the doors of senior personnel and say, hey, look, you know what we're doing to our personnel right now is kind of fucked up and we need to square ourselves away as leaders. And so my last 4 years were really fulfilled with that. And so I just carried that on to my post-retirement. And what was Luis Fonseca No Shame evolved into No Shame Warrior Foundation. The first year we've been in operations, going on 2 years now, but the first year was really just making sure all the administrative stuff was squared away. Someone that as far as this is concerned, I like to work within the legal lines, right? And make sure it was squared away. So that was the first year, and getting some mentorship under me. One of my great mentors in the nonprofit world was like, "Hey, Luis, it's great. It's great. Awareness is 100% great. But what is it that you're doing?" And they kind of spotlighted the fact that we were reaching out to veterans right now that have gone off the grid and saying, "Hey, today's the end of my life. I no longer want to be here." At that time, we had found like three individuals, and my mentor he brought it up. He was like, "Hey, this is what I see the value in it." And so about 10 months ago, our focus really changed from just bringing awareness to, like Mark said, what is our action? And our action is, our main mission is we go out at the critical moment that someone wants to end their life. So if you ever come across a social media post that says, "Hey, I'm done with it. I no longer want to be here. My life is over," and you want to find out the legitimacy of it, all we ask is to do this. Uh, while you're on your social media platform, just search No Shame Warrior Foundation. Take a screenshot of that post, send it to us, and we'll do the background investigation to see how legitimate it is to get the proper authorities to get them help. And in the last 10 months, one thing I'll always brag about my team. Is in the last 10 months, we've been able to locate 9 individuals who are here still to this day because of the hard work of the team that's behind me. And we went from taking that from a 28-hour process. The last time it took us 4 hours to do this, and we're getting it much faster. And the more we have on the team, the faster we can get this done. And like I said, all it takes is the while you're already scrolling on social media, come across that post, just send it our way. It's all it takes. It takes no money, hopefully no extra time from your part on this, the searching through social media. And that's what we're doing. And hopefully we can make a small little dent in this world and bring some friends and family along that are really willing to help prevent these suicide rates and take a tackle on them. So thank you, Mark, for this platform. Really appreciate yourself and everyone else, Lindsay, Hash, and Ryan as well for y'all's time. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and Doc, if you need to sign out to go to your speaking engagement, please feel free, and we can wrap up without you. But Doc, I wanted to say thank you so much for you have put a dent in that. You've directly intervened to save 10 lives. So it's making a difference, and it's actions that matter. Lindsay, please tell everybody a little bit about, your action step.
Okay. So I've kind of hinted on previously that I started a nonprofit, right? It's called Veteran Recreation. Formerly, I call it VetRec for short. And basically, the idea behind my organization is to just promote that getting outdoors, recreating for improvement of mental health. And this isn't just, I am, marked down for PTSD or I have bipolar or have a true mental illness. It's just anyone who wants to improve their mental fitness, their resiliency, just needs a good outlet to just kind of blow off some steam and I'll hammer it down again, get away from the drugs and alcohol and the negative coping mechanisms and find something that's a little more productive that can potentially open the door for camaraderie. I'm a loner by trade for the most part, mostly because I don't have a ton of friends out here in Kansas, but also because I like to kind of just go off the seat of my pants. So I do a lot of hiking, trail running. I recently got into fishing from connecting with a veteran who's helped me kind of, get my feet wet. No pun intended. That might be a joke. I don't know. But I really take it on fishing and it's silly because I do my pictures and people are like, that should be the next profile picture for my dating profile or something. But either way, like I've gotten into a lot of different hobbies to learn about these so that I can specifically connect with veterans and kind of promote those as opportunities for something they can try. And it really did help me break away from everybody thinking, I live in Florida, so I can't hike for mental health. It's anything that you can do to get outside. And so VetRec facilitates that. I'm behind the screen, connecting with every veteran that comes through that just so much as needs help, having the motivation and accountability partner. If you just want somebody to talk to about the fact that you went for a run today or you're getting in a running program, I was a former personal trainer to partner on that, but I've started chipping away and finding people. I've got fishermen in Missouri, California, that would like to support other veterans as well. So anything that they need from the advice on what kind of gear to get. And then, of course, eliminating the financial barrier. If they have the time, if they have the space, if it's something nearby that they can do, then if they're struggling financially and I can't afford it, then don't worry about that because we can help you get the boots and the hiking pack or the fishing pole, whatever you need to get out there, as long as you're willing to commit to making that your therapy, so to speak. And then, of course, we still, talking through things, finding other people in that area to bond with. And if I can't support it, I spend a lot of time working with other organizations and learning about other veteran nonprofits. I've got a ton of research behind that. that if I've got a veteran in Connecticut, I know that Open Doors Outdoors takes people on hikes or fishing or, a myriad of things. So anywhere you are, I can help you. You just need to be able to want to help yourself, and then just send me a message, and, we can go from there, and we can do what it takes to help get you mentally tough.
Building community through blue collar stuff, man. I love it, Lindsay. That's awesome. Ryan, yours is a little different than kind of the nonprofit type and kind of the encouragement type. You're doing it at the VA. Go ahead and unpack it for us, brother.
I want to say, if you haven't listened to anything else I said so far this podcast, this is what I want you to listen to, man. I'm fired up to share it because I know when a lot of people hear, "Oh, you work for the VA," they're going to give me that big FU. It's everybody's got a VA horror story. I get it. I've got my own as well, and I work there now. But I'm so passionate about whole health services. So much so that I left a 10-year, 6-figure career, and now I took a 50% pay cut to go help vets, because to me, it's like everything that I am today and that I care about is centered around my service. I'm not saying that that's all I live for or anything like that. I'm not consumed by it. But when I say that, I'm talking about the impact that people made on me. So what I want to do is give back to them. And for my exploration, the biggest place I saw to do that was at the VA. And a quote that I heard when I went to work there was, all VAs are called the VA, but we're not all the same. And it's accurate. And if you live in a place where the VA there isn't great, I hate that, and I hope that we can make that change. But as far as Tennessee goes, they're doing a hell of a job on improving it. The CEO here he's a vet, and he's passionate about making a difference. You're not just coming to the VA to get a government retirement anymore. If you're not there and passionate about helping vets, you can hit the door. But with all that said, I work as a whole health coach partner, and most people, this has been around the VA for 5 years now, and most people are like, "What is whole health?" They have no idea that it's even a service that's offered. And so when I say whole health, what it does is it offers coaching. And the first thing I want to share with that is we have 5 coaches at our clinic, and 4 of us and 2 partners. So out of the 7 of us, 6 of us are veterans. So you're getting a relatable experience with somebody that has been there, has dealt with it. And you don't have to go in there and see your primary care provider or see a mental health specialist or see a therapist or see somebody that's professional that didn't serve. We offer an opportunity, to actually get to know somebody that's at the VA. And when I say whole health, our motto with it is, it's not what's the matter with you, but what matters to you. We're not there to be your diagnosis and your specialist. We're there to know what makes you want to be healthy. We want to know what you walked in those doors for, that there's a reason that you came in there. There's a reason that you wanted to be better. Is it because your family, your kids, a hobby you enjoy, whatever it might be? And when people come and sit down in front of me and I tell them that, I'm like, it doesn't matter how extreme it is. We don't care what you do outside of the VA as long as it makes you happy and it doesn't hurt anybody. So if you come to me and you say, "Hey, Ryan, I'm 45 years old. My whole life, a bucket list has been to jump out of a plane, and I've never got to do it." I'm not going to look at you and say you're crazy. That's not something we can help you with. I'm going to say, okay, we got list 1 of what you want to do. List B, what's keeping you from doing it? Are your knees hurt? Is your back hurt? Are you overweight? What do you got going on that's keeping you from doing what you want to do? And then I'm going to be that accountability partner. I'm not there to hold your hand and walk you through it. I'm going to question you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to make you tell me what you're going to do to change. And what it does, I know a lot of people get caught up in the aspect of they're a number at the VA. If you take on a health coach, it's not a once-a-year appointment like your primary care is. If you take on a health coach, it's as frequent or infrequent as you want it to be. So if you want to meet them once a week, once a month, once every 6 months, when I say it's all about you, that's what I mean. It's all about the vet. It has nothing to do with me. We're just there to help. And it's most of us there are just extremely passionate about it. And when I say whole health, we have this thing called the circle of health. And it goes around, it starts with moving the body. And then we talk about your surroundings. What do you have going on in your everyday life that you've become complacent to that's stressing you out? Then we have food and drink. It's like, do you need to lose weight? Did you get your blood work done and you have a high A1C, you're pre-diabetic and you want to take care of that? The clinic has dietitians now. We have 6 dietitians at the clinic. We'll get you linked up with them. We'll open doors for you that you didn't know that were at the VA. The next circle is personal development. We want to get rid of that stigma of it is what it is. If you want to make a change and you want to make it a difference in your life, that's what we're going to help you do. It doesn't matter what stage you're in. If you're a 25-year-old veteran or you're an 85-year-old veteran, we want to help whoever comes to us. And then we have sleep and recharge. As we know, most veterans don't sleep as much as you're supposed to sleep. So that's something we work on. We work on family, coworkers, friends, and relationships. If it's, you got that one side of the fence where you're getting manipulated or ran down by your family or friends, it's setting boundaries, or it could be rekindling those relationships because you feel lonely. And then we have, what my personal favorite one is the spirit and soul. And it's like, what is your purpose? When you wake up in the morning, what gets you fired up? What gets you going? What makes you want to be healthy? We want to find that and we want to help you with it. And then the last one is power of the mind. And that's what brings all this together. And what I like to say with whole health is we play that middleman between, like I said, the non-professional and the professional. Because you got guys that walk in there because of this stigma that we can't say anything's wrong. We don't want to see therapists. We don't want to see a mental health doctor. We don't want to see a professional. If that's the case, call your VA and say, I heard about whole health. I want to get an orientation. I want to meet with a coach. I want to see what's up. And what we'll do, if we can't look at that circle of health and say, hey, can we get you where you want to be through one of these 8 entities, or we're working on all of them? Can we get you there? Let's try it. If we can't, then we'll give you that soft door opening into the professional side. So that way you're not just walking into the clinic and you feel attacked by a group of people. Oh, you're suicidal. We're going to take all your stuff. We're going to put you in a padded room. No, come to Whole Health. We'll get you your help. We'll get you in those doors you need to get in, and we're there. My thing with this is, like, so many people think that people don't care, but we do.
Yeah.
And if that's one thing that I can say right now is, my life right now is dedicated to this. I can't express it enough. I know that we're just here talking on a podcast, but this opportunity just to say this last 5 minutes that I've talked means the world to me. And I hope you all took something from it. And my number is 423-677-6743. You can text me. You can call me. You want to know more about whole health, let me know, and I'll do what I can.
Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. So here's my number. So call me, maybe. Hey, Ryan, seriously, man, thank you for sharing. What's interesting about our group is that when we're talking to each other and getting to know each other before we shot this podcast, is that between the 4 of us, when Ryan shared his action steps that he's taken, none of us had heard of it. None of us knew that a VA health coach existed within the VA. And the way he articulated it, it kind of reduced a little bit of the stigma that I had towards the VA itself. So far, my experience with the VA has been very good, but it sounds like a great deal. And Ryan, thanks for taking care of that. Go ahead, brother.
One more thing. It's free for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be 100% disabled. If you come in there and you want a health coach, it's covered. Come in. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Hey, Hash, are you still on, brother, or did you sign off for the night?
No, I'm still on, brother. Can you hear me?
Okay. I think he's got connectivity issues. So I will say on behalf of him, like, his action steps is he is working in conjunction with me to build an outline on how we can help active duty troops when they depart to have a connection back within the communities that they come from. A lot of the veterans that depart active ranks, they go back to smaller towns and places that are not popular with a lot of military, and they indeed feel very alone and afraid. And they resort to the bad techniques, to handle, that gap and that vacancy that they have, to the point of, drugs and alcohol, things that we've talked about. So Hash has helped me develop a blueprint, and we're hoping that we can present that to senior leadership, sometime over the next few months, to figure out a way to build mentors that have been screened through a headquarters to where build PTAD within somebody's, departure from the military, where they go back to their community, their home of record, wherever they're going to, and they meet up with people so they don't feel alone. And the last thing about Hash is that he was the driving force of this podcast. He's the one who initiated the phone call to me, and he's like, Mark, your network's growing. Your podcast base is growing. People are interested, in what you are doing. He's like, we got to hit this thing. We got to hit it hard because of exactly what he said before. The last time that he went to Jamie Nicholson's funeral at MCRD San Diego, the departing shot was, I'll see you at the next one. And it just didn't sit well with him. And he's like, man, I just got to take some action with this. So he is all over the place trying to build community. He's also building like little mini reunions amongst people that he served with. So that's how he's being helpful. And you guys already know what I'm doing. I'm here doing this, right? This is my passion. This is my mission. This was my calling. This is my way to have good folks like you, normal people who have, just real stories. And like what Doc said earlier, when he started No Shame, just him getting out there and taking his mask off and telling troops that it's okay to not be okay. And hey, here's some things that you can do better. Here's some action steps that you can take, to improve your life. That's leadership by example. So by us getting on here, sharing our experiences, we continue to lead within the veteran community. We continue just to lead people. And the other thing is all the fucking negativity that's going on. We're here building positive vibes, and we need a break from that stuff. So that's what I do, and it's my honor to do it. I'm humbled to do it, and I got a strong why and why I do it, and I'm going to keep on going. I'm not over the hill yet, so I got a lot of energy left, and I'm fired up to do it. Before we depart for the evening, and I do my close, any quick 20, 30-second save rounds you would like to share with anybody out there? Any shout outs to anybody, anything like that? I'll start with Ryan. Go ahead.
I'm good, man. I said my piece.
Can I give a shout out to your lovely wife or anything? Your dog, your cat, nothing?
I will do that. I will do that. You make me laugh now. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to where I'm at now, actually, to my wife. Without her, I'll be just straight up transparent, and she hates when I say this, but I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. We've been together 10 years. I actually started dating her over FaceTime my second deployment. I met her a week before deployment, partying at JMU in Virginia, and she's been patient with me, and I owe her where I'm at now, because if not with her, I'd still be miserable doing line work. She got her doctorate degree, and she looked at me and she said, I want you to be happy. Go do something you want to do. I know you want to make a difference. So now's your time. And I'm thankful for her, and I love her. So thank you, Hannah.
Yeah. God bless Hannah, man. She's a lovely woman. Lindsay, quick save round, parting shot, shout outs, anything. Go ahead.
Sure. First, I forgot, with my nonprofit, active duty, we're not cutting anybody off. Guard, reserve, anybody who needs that help, please reach out to me. It's just the logo looks cooler the way that it is. So, but also I just want to rehammer this, keep talking about it. If you're not talking about it, start saying something now, because I can promise anybody who's listening, that doesn't already know, just telling someone can literally save your life. I speak more about that on my blog site, on my own, social media stuff. So you can find out more about that there. I haven't had the courage really to completely come forward with my whole background story of my journey. But I'm, these guys here, thank you, all of you, for sitting with me today and having me on here, because this is where it starts for me, where I really have that courage to step forward and be a little bit more transparent about what I've been through. So thank you, because I look forward to this next part of my journey, and it wouldn't happen without you guys. So.
That's right. Slowly but surely, we're removing the mask. So, hey, appreciate it. Doc, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just want to, not like everyone else said, but, just definitely a huge shout out to my family, my wife, my kids. They dealt with the brunt of my inability to speak up and to deal with my mental health in a healthy manner. So, hats off to them, because they really were the ones that took the brunt of all of that. And they absolutely did not deserve any of the negative stuff that I threw their way because of my inadequacies. So first and foremost, yeah, huge shout out to the family. Huge shout out to all of the great leaders that allowed me to get to that podium after 22 years. But one thing I do want to say is, I want to touch a little bit on it before, but it lost train of thought, so I'll do it now, is this. As much as we think that we are special and we're the only ones dealing with this shit in between our ears, we're really not.
Yes.
There's over 8 billion people in this world. The fact that we stay here, we want to think that we're so freaking special that no one else can understand or knows what we're going through is probably the biggest lie I told myself for so many years. And as soon as
Right.
I opened my mouth and the diarrhea started coming out, I saw that everyone else shit's just the same. And so, yeah, if there's any part that you might take away of this, is just, you know, what we're going through is nothing that no one else has experienced in the whole history of humanity. Open your mouth. Open your mouth, and you'll see who your true friends and family are that are going to surround you with that love, that kindness, that compassion that we need to heal forward. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no doubt, Doc. And that is a perfect way to end the evening and say, that you are indeed not alone. Your neighbors and stuff, they have their own trauma that they have had in their lives and things like that. So you're never by yourself. You're right. We go internal sometimes. We think, well, I was in combat, and Doc, I had to patch up all these guys, and we're not the only ones. Remember, it might be somebody down the street, a woman, might have been raped as a child or something and had, those real deep scars as well. So we're not by ourselves in this. Hey, let's try to be better humans, every day. Hey, YouTube fam, thanks so much for tuning in. It's my honor and my privilege to bring, these great folks to each one of you. Thank you so much for being a willing and active participant in this and taking interest and continuing to chip away at mental health and suicide awareness. It's my honor, to call you guys my friends. And to everybody else out there, all the viewers, remember these three things: be brave, be bold, and be exceptional, and get after life. You only get one shot at it. We're out of here. Take care now.